evening. This is the Athens City Shade Tree Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 9th, 2014. We have no Title 33 tree permit issues or Title 37 landscape ordinance issues. We're going to begin with Ron Lucas's report, and he's going to introduce a presentation.
I am. Thanks, David. I would like to discuss a project and kind of how the genesis of it all began. So we backtracked to last summer, and we had to remove some locust trees from Elmwood. And when that happened, there was a little bit of controversy, and I worked with some of the neighborhood members to come up with a plan. But first, we identified a need for a community tree inventory. So I worked with Lorraine McCosker, and we hashed out some details, and we ended up recruiting the services of some of her students. And they are here in the audience, and they're going to present the work that they did on the first, I would say, the pilot portion of the city's tree inventory and assessment project. So we have those students. I'm going to introduce them. If they could just raise your hand, say hi, everybody. We have Jackie Klepfer and Scott Comisford, Henry Bedu-Mensa, Rachel Zackham, and Emily Kuzmic. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to start the presentation.
Hello and welcome. We are a group of first year's Masters of Environmental Studies students, part of the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs. I'm Emily, and as Ron introduced, we're all here today to talk to you about a tree inventory that we performed last semester as part of Lorraine McCosker's class. So a brief outline of the presentation today. We're going to do a brief introduction of the program, and then Rachel's going to talk about many of the benefits of urban trees. Henry will talk about the methodology and results, and then Jackie and Scott will talk about their future directions for which this tree canopy assessment was a baseline. So a little bit about the Environmental Studies program. It was created in 1970, and it was made to be an interdisciplinary program to promote creativity and flexibility so that students with a broad range of disciplines may come into the program and they may pursue a broad range of disciplines such as earth science, physical science, archaeology, politics, and modeling. It also is a great way to promote collaboration and networking, and there are ample research opportunities as such as the applied research in the Athens area, such as the assessment that we performed last semester. So why does Athens need an assessment of its tree canopy? The city of Athens lacks basic information about its tree canopy, including the different species types, distribution, health, and age of its trees. These assessments help quantify the benefits that trees can provide for a community, and it promotes better understanding of the current composition and structure of the urban forest, which will aid in better present and future management positions. So what's an urban forest? It's the sum of all trees, shrubs, lawns, and pervious soils in an urban setting. They're located in residential areas, parks, public areas, and along streets. We specifically focus on street trees, which can be defined as the trees found in the right-of-way. So the trees that are found in the tree lawn right in between the paved road and the sidewalk, we define as city trees. And of course, they contribute to the green infrastructure of a city. Now I'll pass it on to Rachel, and she's going to talk about why trees are important.
All right, so we go on to some of the benefits of the urban tree canopy. Today, urbanization has increased at a momentous pace, and it is placing great stress upon the Earth's life support systems. Today, more than half of the world's population lives in suburban and urban areas, and urban to rural migration is expected to continue to rise over the next 25 years. So trees are going to play an important role in the social, ecological, and economic health of cities in the future. The social benefits of urban trees, obviously the aesthetic beauty is very obvious of tree-lined streets, and this aesthetic beauty leads to a reduction in mental and physical stress. It also leads to improved walkability of the urban area, as it makes people more likely to go outside and walk instead of driving to their destination. There's also been studies that show that streets that have tree lines have reduced vehicular speeds and a traffic calming effect, and there's also a reduction in city noise and sun glare. The ecological benefits are that trees are able to sequester carbon, and an average tree sequesters 10 pounds of carbon in the air per 1 year. Leaves can also intercept 760 gallons of rainfall per year. This greatly reduces runoff into sewers and helps with the utilities, everything they have to manage. It also provides a habitat for endangered fish and migratory birds and other wildlife that might be living in the area or using it in their migratory patterns. It helps to reduce erosion and mitigate flooding in the urban area, and it can help reduce the heat island effect by providing a natural shade. The economic benefits are, unlike most investments, a tree's value increases over time, and houses on tree-lined streets have higher property values than in neighborhoods without trees, and also houses that have trees in their own yards have a higher property value. Also, it reduces the home energy costs through that reduction in heat, and the heat island effect by the shade. I'm going to pass it on to Henry to tell you about the methods.
I'm here to talk about the fun part. And I would say this was achieved chiefly by team effort and the commitment by all the team members. And our study involved, the objectives of our study was to collect ground inventory of street trees and near the east side neighborhood. And by this, the definition of the street trees has been defined, has been given by Emily. And all the trees in this area where we quantified all of them using some parameters. And then we also to identify potential planting spaces for trees. This we do by having a look at any empty space. As you can see in this picture, we have a look at this space. We check to see if there are any lines up ahead or any service systems down below. And if there are not, then we make a recommendation in our documentation as possible places where some new trees can be planted. And we'll also to compile the information in a database, and which we use to make our map that we did. And these are the instruments that we use to accomplish this our task. We use the DBH tape, which is here, and we also use the roller tape measure, and then we use tree identification books. We use a couple of these, and these are specific for Ohio. And then we use the height tool to estimate the height of every tree. And then also we use the roller tape to also get the canopy. And the canopy helps us to get the size of the canopy of all the trees in this area that we studied. But most importantly, we will also to look at the physical observations, to look at the physical state of the trees, which we considered if the tree has an infestation by insect, if it has been cropped, if also to check whether the tree will pose as, a problem for the overhead lines and all that. And yes, all the information that we got, we compiled in this database. And one thing I failed to mention was that we use the street addresses of the houses where the trees are found to identify these trees. So every tree is connected to the house in which it is found. And we compile this information in this database. We use this information to also generate the map of the canopy and the trees in the area. I'll hand over to Jackie to continue.
Thanks, Henry. So this is just the preliminary results that we were able to establish through this inventory. 258 street trees were actually measured. 22 we determined unidentifiable. Either they were non-natives, or they were ornamentals, or we couldn't determine what they were. So they went into their own category and weren't involved in the analysis. So 236 trees were analyzed. 43 different species came out of this. 69 potential planting sites. The canopy was determined to be 26.2%. That includes backyard trees, trees in people's yards, as well as the street trees. So that's an overall canopy estimate. So on average, the lower 48 states, it's about 27.1%. So Near East Side is pretty much there. So this is an aerial view of the Near East Side neighborhood with the street tree overlaid on top of it. So it's a GIS developed map. These are canopy widths, so each circle is large or small depending on its canopy size. So as you can see, in the middle of that neighborhood, there are hardly any street trees. That could be a number of different reasons. Maybe their ash trees were cut down. Maybe a few trees that you had mentioned may have been cut down on Elmwood, although Elmwood is fairly treed. Or the tree lawn is very narrow, especially on Ohio Avenue. So we took that information and we put it into a software called iTree. It's a peer-reviewed software suite developed by the USDA Forest Service. It's used by cities, it's used by Davey Trees, the National Arbor Association uses it, American Forests. So it's a very reputable software. We were able to look at the different species distribution. 21% sugar maple was the dominant tree species, followed by silver maple and sweet gum at 18%. So we identified their condition through this software by dead or dying, poor being, infested, or lots of dead wood, or just in very general poor condition. Fair being some dead wood but looking pretty good, and then good being young, healthy tree. So there actually was one dead tree, and that was on South May Avenue. That went under unknown because it was dead. We didn't know what it was. So there's one dead tree. So with iTree, we were able to, I'm sorry, the numbers are quite small, look at different kinds of ecosystem services that these trees provide. So in the graph to the right, annual energy benefits, that's electricity and natural gas combined per tree. So if you look at sweet gum, $10.41 is saved by having one sweet gum tree on your property. So these are averages. This is based on utility averages for this area. So it could be, I'm not sure what the margin of error is. There is a slight margin of error there. So the graph on the left is total annual energy benefits per population of tree. So the sugar maple tree, there were, I think, 31 sugar maple trees. So out of that population of trees, it saves you $268.54 per year. It's a general estimate on your gas and electric. So then we can talk about carbon, stored carbon. In the top graph there, if we look at sugar maple, that's the entire population of sugar maple. It sequesters 5,522 pounds of carbon. If you look at the bottom graph, we'll look at silver maple. That's total stored carbon. That's 221,857 pounds of carbon. That is also for the, I'm sorry, the top graph is per tree. The bottom graph is total population of tree species. So as you can see, those are significant numbers. It just adds to the value of that tree, having that tree in your neighborhood, purifying air, taking carbon out of the air. You can also look at rainfall interception, increased property value due to aesthetics. So these are different things that the iTree software is able to provide the city, these types of ecosystem services. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the research that I would like to continue to do, just kind of piggybacking off of this research that the five of us did together. I would like to do a complete survey of the whole city of Athens, not just a neighborhood, by using the LiDAR that's going to be flown over this summer. If no one's familiar with LiDAR, it's pretty much what this picture is showing. It's laser shot from a low-flying airplane. It's more advantageous than just plain aerial photography because it cuts out shadow, which is inherent error in aerial photos. So the lasers are able to pinpoint every leaf and every branch, and it creates a 3D image of that tree. I'll also use aerial photography and GIS to ground truth and try to minimize error. So I'll use all of that to do pretty much what we just did: canopy cover, species health, species distribution of the entire Athens canopy. And then also using iTree to estimate various ecosystem services. And I'll turn it over to Scott.
All right, thanks, Jackie.
I'd like to make a quick comment. The LiDAR and the new orthophotography has been flown. The pictures are done. So we will hopefully have that data in the summer. Yeah, so it's there. It's really good, too.
All right. Okay. So in addition to this top-down LiDAR approach that Jackie's going to focus on, I'm actually going to continue using the methods that we developed for the Near East Side neighborhood to be on the ground, boots on the ground approach, and I'm probably going to be enlisting a fair amount of help for this. And this is sort of, we established this baseline for the neighborhood, and we want to continue using that method to physically see what species are on the ground. It's important for diversity reasons. We want to be able to see what species are actually present. If we determine that an area of the city has an unproportionately high concentration of, say, silver maples or something like that, and it would turn out to be prone to some new invasive species or pest or blight or disease of some sort, we want to know that. And then I'm also going to be continuing to note the health conditions of trees that are currently there, determining potential problem trees based on things like deadwood, pest infestation, things like that. And then we're also going to be continuing to identify future planting areas. And the top-down approach, we can see open areas, but we're not always aware of if there's some sort of obstruction to planting a tree there that you couldn't tell from above. And then something else that I added to the project that I'm pretty excited about is I plan to actually take some tree core samples from select urban trees as part of a larger project that's focusing on land use and tree age as they relate to the growth response based on annual growth rings to climatic variation. So we actually have local climate data, and I've already started establishing plots up at the Ridges Land Lab to provide I plan on doing sort of a gradient. We're going to actually sample trees within the urban area. The Ridges Land Lab will serve as sort of that second growth forest right adjacent to an urban area. And then I'm also going to be setting up plots out at the Vinton Experimental Forest as a site that's even further removed from urbanization. And my objectives with this are to determine how the growth response of trees to climatic variables differs among both age cohorts and the actual land use itself. And in the context of climate change and increasing urbanization, it's important for researchers and planners alike to understand the ways in which growth responses differ among trees of different ages and land uses. Trees are an important carbon sink, and determining different growth responses based on tree ring analysis will actually improve estimates of potential carbon sequestration. And I'm just going to wrap it up here. So we drew some conclusions from this whole process. First of all, it was a great opportunity to engage with the community and work as a team. It was right off our bat. We're all first years, so we're figuring out what grad school is all about. And the ratings class was a great opportunity to break down into smaller groups, really get to know some of our classmates a little better, and get out and explore the community in some areas that students traditionally don't really wander into. And it also had the benefit of this served as a great baseline inventory for the start of a larger assessment, which Jackie and I are going to be working on. Provided preliminary data for future research, raised some awareness, both when the assessment is done for whoever happens to read it, and the fact that we're out there walking around in a lot of cases. People were very curious. We had a lot of people come up to us and ask, what are you doing? I see you're looking at my trees, So, it was fun to explain what we were up to them. And then, hopefully the data that we collect will come in handy for management decisions going forward with the City of Athens. And with that said, I'd like to turn it over to anyone who has any questions for any of the group members. We'd love to hear them.
Well, thank you for your presentation. It's very informative. And also like to thank Lorraine for having this in her class, and also Ohio University for making all this possible. Just one comment I've got. We have a 1991 tree inventory, and one potential future project would be to make a comparison between this, what you're doing, and that old one. And I do have it in electronic form. It isn't just in paper. But that's one potential thing. But the tree commissioners, have you got questions?
Yeah, I have a question. That's great information. We really appreciate your effort. When you had the graphs on how much CO2 was sequestered by individual trees, I'm assuming that the iTree, yeah, exactly, has for each species the amount of CO2 that it will sequester?
Yeah.
And obviously the same for rainfall. So, for example, it looks like sweet gum intercepts less rainfall than a maple tree.
It's maybe deceptive because of the number of trees.
Well, but I thought sweet gum was our most dominant.
Sugar maple.
Sugar maple was.
Followed
Okay.
Second most.
Yeah, sweet gum's the second most.
So, is it just based on an average size tree, or is it based on species, that data?
That data is based on species.
Okay,
So
very
yeah,
good.
it would be assumed that it does intercept less rainfall.
Okay, thanks.
And I think I may have misrepresented the top graph for sequester. That's annual reductions in CO2 by tree, and then the bottom one is carbon stored over the entire lifetime of a tree species, not by the number of species.
Okay.
So I misspoke. So when we were on Elmwood, I guess that was my favorite street. It's a gorgeous street, beautiful, wide, beautiful trees. We did run into one or two people.
Really,
They all hate
every
sweet
day
gums.
that we were
They hated the sweet gum. Yeah.
Everybody hates sweet gum, and you should not plant anymore. Everybody complains either about the falling hazard, the tripping hazard, the fact that kids can put them in their mouths and choke on them. But honestly, every single person that stopped us to talk about what we were doing had something to say about the sweet gum,
Yeah.
and wanted, like, honestly, what they told us was, take out my sweet gum. We want you to take the sweet gum out. And we're not doing that. We're just assessing your trees. So
But there,
Be interesting to have some of that anecdotal.
planting, maybe don't put in sweet gum, and also the buckeyes, because buckeyes are poisonous to animals and children, and people complain about that too. It's just maybe.
We don't plant many buckeyes.
We haven't planted any
and,
buckeyes this
Sweet
time.
gums, yes, that's a known problem. And
Yeah, it's a known
there was a move at one point to try and plant, was it sterile ones or male ones? I forget now what
The
the
sterile
this-
ones
Yeah.
were not so sterile.
Yeah, because they have
Yeah.
they have the greatest shade, really.
Beautiful
They're-
leaves,
they're-
beautiful color.
Things I love to point out. There's no perfect tree, no perfect kid. In Europe, one of the dominant street trees is horse chestnut. And if anyone knows what chestnut straw, not only is it a gigantic nut, but it's encased in the most, as many prickles as you could ever imagine a spear having. So a lot of it is cultural, and I think part of it we have to kind of really work with people and help them recognize that yes, trees drop things. That's what they do. That's why we've got bedded rakes.
That's why we get more trees.
And we do have programs to mitigate that, with our annual pickup, leaf pickup, and things like that. So
Yeah, but the sweet gum one, I think that's something the city needs to look at, because the sweet gums tend to drop them at this time of the year in the spring. And that's
Yeah.
something that we may want to look at in terms of cleaning up in certain areas.
Last year was just an exceptional year for seed. unfortunately, yeah, this is.
This is a good year for sweet gum seed.
If you have sweet gums and you're a gardener, they are great for repelling snails. Put sweet gums around your bird feeder, it'll keep the neighbor's cats away.
Really?
Sweet gums, balls, they hate potpourri. When you can't change the world, change your perception.
So those are the type of things that will bring attention to, through this type of research, and, helping with management decisions and things like that. So that's what we're hoping to bring to light.
I think what you're doing is really great, but I was a little concerned that you were not including non-native trees, because I think just off of the top of my head, it seems that most of the smaller trees that are planted under wires are non-natives. Of course, they will not have as large canopy, but I think it would be good to include those.
Yeah,
And-
we
and-
do include those, and the 22 that we weren't able to identify, I think, were ornamentals, and we weren't familiar with them because we're all from Ohio. So it wasn't that they weren't included. There were some non-natives. So
All the books we were using were specifically for this region,
Yeah.
so we weren't really equipped with it. But
We'll have the data to be able to revisit.
yeah, we
those
will have.
trees
We will be.
when we're able
That
to
will be
identify.
included.
Back to 'em.
And so it was
Yeah, we
our
could
first
figure
go
out what they
around,
are.
and we're newbies, and
But
So-
there's some large shade trees like the London plane tree that are non-native, or I guess that is a hybrid that is only half native.
so they will be
natives
included.
that we identified
Yeah.
using like an online tool, but it didn't really, the application didn't really work out that well for us. So we used it a few times, and we have some that weren't native, but it's just a lot of the ones that we couldn't identify.
Yeah, we're possibly non-natives. I say possibly because we weren't quite sure what they were, but they will be included in Scott and I's analysis. Like I said, that was our first go around, newbies.
But they will be
yes.
included as
Yes,
identified.
identified.
Good, good.
Yes, absolutely. So this graph here just shows the top 10 most abundant species in that neighborhood, but we will be, rest assured, we will be identifying every tree as best as we know how, and Anne has offered her services to help us out as well.
And some of us might be willing
Absolutely.
to help also.
Absolutely.
I think you said there were 43 species identified.
Yes.
So you're only showing 10 there. So
Yes.
and in fact, when I counted up the percentages, it looks like that the other 33 account for quite a large percentage.
Yes.
Of,
There are some
of
trees,
what's
it'll
there.
be one or two
Yes.
of that species.
Yeah,
so.
but 30 of them, that's you got 30% at that point.
That's a little more diversity than I expected.
Yes, it
that's,
is.
That's
Yes,
quite a
it-
few
yes.
species.
Although I
Yeah.
think, I remember the maple being the biggie in that 1991.
If you break it down, maple's still
Yes.
probably 50%.
Yeah, you can see.
Silver, red,
We've got two different kinds of maples broken.
It's 20,
Four.
It's probably very similar in the
24.
north of East State Street in that same area.
30.
Tree makeup.
Got 37% there is maple. So we're down. I mean, if we were at 50 in 91, we're down because the silver maples were planted back in the 1930s and they're now dying. We've been replacing them with things other than silver maples.
and that really puts you ahead of probably most communities that are doing this. You know about the 10, 20, 30 rule. You know, that you really want no more than 10% one species, 20% of the genera, and 30% of family. And so you guys are getting.
We're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to have maple's going to be heavy because it's really one of the best street trees out there.
Yes.
When you were looking at tree sites, did you also look at sites that were in the right-of-way that weren't in tree lawns, that were up in people's yards? Because they're, a lot of these streets, the streets that are the most naked, Maplewood and Ohio are very narrow streets with wide rights-of-way. And there's somebody on Maplewood, Attila, I think, who's been planting trees up in areas that are probably right-of-way. So there are more street trees out there than you realize, perhaps.
Yeah, there may have been some inherent error, like I said, being new to it. I think that we learned a lot from doing this, and we'll be able to, moving forward, address those
Yeah.
those right-of-ways that are maybe they don't look like right-of-ways.
Yeah. We've planted trees behind hedges that are actually where the right of way extends quite close to the person's property. and it isn't obvious at all that the right of way is. And I don't know, are we any closer to having an overlay for the city GIS
For the right of way?
showing the right of way?
We do. We have it.
We do it. Okay.
So they can access that? Or?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and it's available online. But from my perspective, having just the tree lawn and the upfront trees where utility lines and things of that are, I know that we can have 100% control. We won't have to have. It's important to gather those right-of-way trees all the way into yards, because there are some property owners that will welcome a tree in their yard, but there are some property owners that unfortunately will not. So having this ID is guaranteed control for us to look at those planting sites and say, we're going to plant a tree there, and we can with little to no controversy.
Emily?
I had another question about right-of-way and tree lawns. You had a picture of a bare tree lawn, but it appeared to be a very narrow one, which would be difficult to plant in. And did you take the size of the empty tree lawns, the width of the empty tree lawns, into consideration in your recommendations?
Yes. So
Okay.
we wrote down in our database if it was a narrow tree lawn, if there was an overhead issue with power lines, those spots could possibly be planted with smaller ornamental or a bush or a shrub or something that the roots aren't going to spread out as much. So there are ways to mitigate that, or it could just be impossible. You know, I know a couple of spots. This may be one of them. You can't tell from the picture, but like you said, it is pretty narrow. This may not be plantable.
That is a site that we tried to plant in 2012. There's a water line that runs right through the middle of that whole thing.
But that's an example of where we would see if we can plant on the property side of the sidewalk if the right of way extended and the property owner was willing.
This is admirable. Thank you so much.
It's very good. Very good. Yes. Thank you.
What is the source of your aerial imagery?
This is, I believe this is NAIP. It's it's from the Department of Agriculture.
What is the date?
That is 2013.
And how would that compare in resolution for LiDAR?
The LiDAR will be much higher resolution. I don't know what the
It's 3-inch.
3-inch.
It'll be extremely
So
extremely
this
clear.
this is, I believe, is 1 meter. The NAIP is 1 meter.
There's a big difference, especially when you start to get into a very close zoom on one of those streets. You're going to get a lot of graininess and blur. With the new aerial photography, I actually have pictures of it where you can zoom in to a level where you can see the bases of power poles, manholes, hydrants. You can see it, so it's very good resolution.
And if,
Whereas this is average.
yeah, this is definitely average. And if you know the eye is good, you can actually identify the type of tree species that it is. You can tell health from the air as well. So, but it is good to have that ground truthing. So that's what Scott and I are going to work on together, is doing the ground inventory as well.
It will be interesting when the new aerial photographs and LiDAR are available, how you'll have to adjust your map to fit the new, because there's going to be some air. I mean,
Definitely.
there's going to be a possibility of 2 foot 9 inches of air in every tree, and maybe more. So there'll need to be some work done to put it into that orthophoto.
Yeah, and that's where the ground truthing comes in, to try to eliminate some of that air. And the LiDAR as well eliminates shadow. So as you can see in this image, there's plenty of shadow.
So how was the position of the individual trees fixed? Were they GPS, or did you fix them from the photograph?
So some of them were done by street address. So I used an algorithm to actually position them by street address, and then I went in with a parcel map, and I physically moved each tree to potentially where it should be within 2 feet or so of margin of error. I'm not going to be able to do that for the whole neighborhood or for the whole city. So there's a way to mitigate that as well, to be able to get around, to eliminate some of that error. Yeah. And that would be with GPS. But Scott and I will have to go over that.
Well, and you'll be able to see a lot of the bases of the trees with the new aerial photos, so you might be able to just edit your individual points and move them right onto the photo. You should be able to see that. And those are things that we can have people assist you with. We have resources in the city and other resources at Ohio University that can work on that. Are there any more questions?
I'd just like to make one more comment. I think that this is great because with all of the statistics and all of the work that they've done, I think this will impress people who are not necessarily tree people. And a lot of times it's difficult to get people to understand how important we think trees are. And I think that some of this should be excellent arguments.
Especially when you start talking dollars and cents. That's when people really start listening.
People understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also have a comment, and Emily took my thunder a little bit, but that's okay. It's really fabulous. I am extremely impressed with everything that you've done so far. I'm very encouraged by your professionalism that you used during this whole process. It was fun getting to know you as fellow community members, and I do want to point that out, that this is service-based learning at its essence, and to be quite frank, we need more of it. So this was a great opportunity for me and hopefully for you to continue bridging that gap that we often have between students and the community, that we're all this community. This is your home, this is my home, and doing projects like this is a good thing. So thank you. You gave us some great tools here that we'll be able to use for the future and plan our canopy more successfully. And I think it's going to be a long-term sustainable project. So hopefully we get something continued this summer. I'm going to push for it. And when you guys are taking jobs elsewhere in other cities, we'll have some kind of model that we can use to continue it. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? No. Well, let me endorse Ron. I think this is a wonderful beginning to what is a large project for the city. And again, I thank Lorraine and Ohio University for making this possible. I assume you're going to have these You're going to present these tomorrow at the Research Expo. Yeah. Okay. So there'll be another chance if people want to Ohio University's Research Expo is tomorrow, April 10th, in the Combo, and the posters will be on display there. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Ron.
I have nothing. No.
Yeah, do you have anything else for us tonight?
Can't follow that, Ron, huh?
Can't follow that. Actually, I have a few other things. Athens Beautification Day is on Sunday, so again, another one of those opportunities for community as one to do something for the greater good. And we're looking at, last I heard, around 1,300 people divided among numerous service-based projects. Some of those are going to involve trees, and I plan on tracking that for Tree City USA. Got Ann here, because that's a big component of our Tree City USA application. So there will be a lot of activity going on from around noon until around 4 o'clock on Sunday. So if you aren't doing anything, go to one of the parks or go to one of the major thoroughfare streets and assist. There'll be lots of activity. Jackie.
So, Scott, Emily, Rachel, and 4 other people, we've all signed up to do Beautification Day. And I talked to the director of it to see if she could get us into tree planting or something of the sort. So I don't know if they already have it set up by group, but we're the MSC group.
Okay, we aren't doing any tree planting. There will be some flower and bush grass plantings here and there, but we aren't going to do any tree planting. But I'm sure I'll see you. I'll be running around like a chicken with my head cut off that day. So we'll have some fun. It's a good day. Another item that I have is the Columbus Road tree planting. Mason Chambers has our trees, and I'm going to coordinate with him to get those trees put into the ground. We're looking at about 30 trees at this point, not only on the median, but near the parking lot at the intersection of 2nd and North Lancaster. Do some plantings there. AEP remove some electric for us so that we can clean out that site and make it more attractive. Bicentennial Park, we need to revisit it. There is some further death to the trees in that park, so I'm going to work with Kevin Skurlock from the Parks and Recreation Department to do some removals and replant. Again, that's a park that I have a lot of personal pride in, so we're going to keep that going as much as we can. So we're looking at probably removing 7 or 8 trees and replacing with the correct species. For anybody that doesn't know, the Bicentennial Park is in East State Street Park, and it is from the aerial view, it looks like a star. And it was, it's planted so that there's some red, some white, and some blue in that tree, in that park at any given time of the year. So we're very selective in what we plant there so that we have that capability to keep that going. Another project that I've been working on with community food initiatives, Mary Nally, is a community orchard. So this project has been a lot of fun. Initially, there is a grant to a Ohio University student for 20 trees, and it includes a 3-year maintenance on those trees, which is important. So we talked about putting these 20 trees in various sites around the city. Some of our criteria got limited to where are people going to be? Are the people that are going to use that tree are there going to be people there, but are they going to use that tree for a food resource? So we thought about those criteria. Is it a neighborhood place or is a open space? So there are some components to that, and what they will come in and harvest what is not picked, so that food goes to the food bank. So it's important. So when we debated all these different sites, we finally got the idea of, you know what? Why don't we just plant these trees in one place? So we picked a neighborhood park, Highland Park in particular, and we're going to develop a community orchard. And that is actually what we may call it, Highland Park and Orchard, or Highland Orchard and Park at some point, because of the way we're going to have it set up. If it's successful, hopefully we can continue that into other areas. But we like the location of Highland Park, being that it is in a neighborhood. There's a neighborhood feel to it. There's a lot of neighborhood use of it. And we think it just makes sense for people to bring their when they're going on a walk, there's a lot of walkers up there, or when they're bringing their children to the park, to just go over, pick an apple, pick a blueberry, whatever, and enjoy it. And then that'll also help during the harvest. They won't have to run all over creation to pick the fruit. It's right there. So that was another thing that we thought of that might be helpful to them.
There's already
plenty of space.
Few trees that were planted there a few years ago.
There are one's dead. It never took root. But the maples that are there are maples. Imagine that. The maples that are there are doing well. So we talked about possibly removing them, but I didn't want to.
But there are a couple of fruit trees on the inside of the fenced area.
I think those are. I think they failed. I don't think they're there anymore.
No, there was a pair, and they had pears last year. So it's a good site, I guess, is
okay.
what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they on the...
They're on the inside of the fenced area, just on the edge.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, and I'm assuming you're planting just outside the fence?
No, we're planting inside the fence. We're going to we're going to continue the row in the
row.
Front, and then we're going to create a second row at a stagger. And then we're going to continue the row on the side where those pear trees are. So it will have an orchard feel to it.
Yeah,
and there's plenty of space for people to throw a frisbee, to run around, for kids to swing on the swing set. There's still going to be plenty of space there. And our Parks and Rec maintenance people we're involved in the planning process, so they'll be able to get their mowing through with no problem with our mulch rings and things like that. And the only other thing I had was we received our Tree City USA information. Thanks, Ann. We're 24 years and running, so this is a big year. If we are successful in qualifying for Tree City USA this year, 2014, that's 25 years, and my hat's off to everyone involved in that process because it takes a lot of work and effort to accomplish. I plan on it. So, thanks, Ann.
Any questions for Ron? I have submitted a list of commercial sites that where we've asked checks on the compliance, and I'm hoping John Patsky will get back to us either through Ron or in person at the next meeting. I didn't expect anything today. I think we've dealt with the maintenance of tree canopy, which is one of our standard items on here. I don't know if there's anything you want to say at all, Anne.
Real briefly, the Athens Conservancy, a local land trust in Athens, is hosting and working with the Department of Natural Resources to have a hemlock woolly adelgid workshop for landowners in the Athens and Washington County area. If those of you don't know, they found the hemlock woolly adelgid in Meigs County, Washington County, and several spots in the Huffing Hills. So the workshop will be May 14th from 6:30 to 7:30 at the ODNR headquarters on East State Street at my office. It's free, and so I hope spread the word and get people to come out, because there are ways that we can manage this pest. It's one of the few that we might have a shot at managing.
Okay.
I do have another announcement regarding tree canopy. There's the Athens Soil and Water District is hosting a rain garden and organic gardening workshop on May 10th. So that would be another thing that's going to be open to the community. It's going to be at the community center, I believe, but I'll have to double check that.
Okay. The only other item I've got is that I think we have to start looking at possible revisions to Title 37 again. This time in the context of trying to give an incentive for people to keep trees at commercial sites. There's some examples where we've seen large shade trees taken out, and obviously they're planting replacement trees, but those trees are going to take 20 or 30 years to provide any sort of decent canopy, and I think we have to come up with an incentive to encourage people to keep those trees there. And so potential incentives are that they'd be forgiven planting new trees until that big tree died, and we could base the number either on the diameter of the tree or on the cross-sectional area of the tree, but I think we have to come up with some sort of incentive scheme. So
Or look at some cities where they have tree preservation codes that are separate from their zoning, and maybe the others, instead of it's the state approach. So I mean, it's worth exploring. City of Dublin does that. There's certain things you can't cut down.
yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, so that's on my agenda to try and work up some draft language that we can have a look at. Are there any other matters that we want to consider tonight? If not, we've got the minutes of the last meeting, so if you could look over those for me, and somebody propose we accept them.
I propose we accept them.
Thank you, David.
I read them.
I second that. Checked them out.
Thank you, Alvy. Are there any questions, comments, concerns coming out of them? If not, is there any objection to approving the minutes of the last meeting? Hearing none, we have minutes of our last meeting. Our next meeting is May 8th, a Thursday again. And with that, this meeting of the Tree Commission is adjourned. Thank you.